Boyden is a global executive recruiting firm celebrating their 75th anniversary this year. The Canadian team has 7 offices across the country, including Toronto, working with clients locally, nationally, and internationally on appointments ranging from vice presidents, CEOs, to board of directors. Together, Dress for Success Toronto and Boyden have worked together several times to bring relevant workshops to you guys, as well as working with their other chapters in Ottawa, Montreal, and Calgary. Sharing a deep commitment to DEI, Boyden continues to form global and national partnerships focused on an action-oriented approach to accelerating diversity and deliver programming regularly on the topic. With that, I welcome today's session instructors, Boyden's Ian Collyer and Harry Singh. Ian is a partner at Boyden based in the Toronto office. A search professional with nearly 2 decades of experience, Ian works with clients ranging from private equity to venture-backed startups with large multinational organizations, primarily across the technology and consumer sectors. He is a regular speaker at Boyden events and workshops, including Dress for Success Toronto. Harry is an associate at Boyden, also based out of the Toronto office. With over 7 years experience in executive training and search, Harry's background includes over 10 years of business and technology consulting, primarily as a research and analyst. He works with clients in the technology, financial services, and professional services. So with that, I welcome both Ian and Harry, and we'll kick off today's workshop.
Well, welcome everybody, and thanks for joining us this morning. It's a real pleasure for Harry and I to speak with you today, and to see everybody's at home in what has been our new reality this past year. We've met with Dress for Success through the years, and it's always been in person. So looking forward to doing that at some point, and hopefully in the near future to meet all of you in person and have a coffee and a chat. So we're happy to speak with you today again around your job search and are all around the elements to the job search. And I know we've called it a job seeking game here. However, it's not a game, right? It's one of the most important things to your in your life and in your career. So we're Harry and I are going to be walking through the next hour some of the strategies and perspectives we have on this, and maybe ideas that might be helpful to you as you engage in your job search. So touch an overview today. I'm realizing I didn't keep up with Cassie's chat there. I'm new to this PowerPoint sharing. Normally I'm not organizing it, so sorry about that. I'll look to keep up here. So we'll walk through a couple elements here. First of all, the foundation, job search foundation. Talk about some of the pre-work and even pre-thinking that you would do right as you enter a job search or continue a job search or even rethink your job search, right? We'll also talk about a plan, which is things you put in place that are helpful. There's probably 3 to 4 things in particular that you put in place up front and on an ongoing basis that are helpful to you during your job search process. Things like resumes, LinkedIn profiles, networking, research, and tactics around that. And we'll also talk about positivity. So taking care of yourself, right? It can be a long process, right? When we talk to some executives, no matter who they are, it's in some cases it can be a 6-month plus process, and a lot of twists and turns and ups and downs, and hopes raised, hopes dashed, things like that, right? And frustration. So it is important. We've got some ideas there that we've learned in talking to people that can be helpful to hopefully help you during the process, right? And we'll also have as Cassie mentioned, the Q&A. So love to take any and all of your questions, either during or of course after. We do have a poll here, and it'd be great. Cassie will put it up on the screen here. It'd be great to hear from you all for a few seconds where you're at with your job search. Okay, so that's helpful. So we've got fairly even split. We've got a few folks that are a year plus, and then we've got really a lot of people that are, I guess it's equally in some cases across the board, right? From 2 months to over a year plus. And I'll say this too, it's obviously with the COVID scenario, it's been the most unique job environment, right, of our lifetimes. Like there's no question. We've had other economic downturns, but we've never seen a situation where the whole world has been sort of turned upside down and whole parts of the economy have done, exceedingly well, and other parts have just been shut down, right? And there have not been opportunities. So this is that's helpful to learn. Thank you for that. So your job search foundation, and this is sort of some of your early, I'll say, pre-work or thinking or even ongoing thinking, right? And it is a lot about self-reflection and thinking, kind of a self-assessment, like what experiences do I have? What skills do I have? What are my interests, right? What activities do I enjoy? And I'm talking about work activities, right? Uh, and what range of roles then, looking at that, can fit into my skill set. And part of this is perhaps even uncovering roles you may not have thought of, or industries you may not have thought of. And when I think about what Harry and I do, so we're in recruiting. Nobody ever grows up or goes to university or school thinking I'm going to be a recruiter, right? People fall into it in different ways. And how I fell into it, right, was when I was younger, so 15, 20 years ago, and embarking on my job search and career. I heard about this role, recruiting, and I was curious what people get paid to find people, find employers or employees. How does that work? I don't understand that. And started, and from my perspective, started to look into my experience that I had, the little experience I had at the time, how I enjoyed research, how I enjoyed learning about different businesses, how I enjoyed meeting people, helping people, and how I enjoyed business development. And I realized that all of those things actually were day-to-day activities of being in recruiting. And that's how I got into it. So it is good to do a self-assessment, self-audit of yourself and the experiences you have, the skills you have, what do you enjoy about a job, if it's customer service, for example, are your experiences and strengths perhaps in organization type activities, administrative activities, or other activities, sales activities. And through that, even during your job search, you could, as you see the new roles emerge, and there are new roles that are emerging all the time, very dynamic economy. Maybe my skills actually are applicable to those. So this is about understanding what you want to do, where you should, what types of roles, and therefore then where you should be looking, right? And along with that, what is important to you. And through that can help to maybe create the foundation of and guide some of where you'll be exploring and looking for roles, and maybe evaluating roles. Do the roles include things that I enjoy, that I'm good at, my skills? Is it touching me?
Well, thank you so much, Ian, for that introduction, and good morning, all. A part of the reason why I chose to kind of have this session was because back in 2018, when I moved to Canada as an immigrant myself, I didn't have any Canadian experience, no Canadian education, and no network to start with. And really, as an immigrant, when you think about it, you let go of the jobs which have been doing fantastically well for you for all these years, and then to start from scratch. That's where I kind of realized that it's not always your dream job which you land into as you start for this job hunting. But two things which were the key takeaways for me. One, keeping it simple. We like to use fancy words like strategy, a lot of complexities around it. But no, it's a simple approach to see things and do things. And second, which factor which helped me is be pragmatic about things, be very practical when it comes to, and tactical at the same time when it comes to really being in the market. So I joined a boutique firm, which was probably I would say one 30th the size to which I was working in back in India. And then from there, picked up simple things like body language, the client engagement piece, how they talk, the mannerism, the culture, and that kind of laid the foundation for me to actually get into a role which I felt was a clear match to my skill set and the scale at which I was used to work in my previous organization. So it's really about putting, as I say, a plan into work. There's a lot which can be done before really getting into the market. You can be market ready. You can fine tune a lot of things before going ahead with it, which includes your CV, which includes your LinkedIn, and really lays the foundation for your next job. And it's about patience. At the end of the day, things don't happen overnight. I can see through the poll as well that we have people who have been waiting from 2 months anywhere to 1 year. It takes time, but within that time, please make use of this phase and really keep an eye on the market. keep assessing yourself, keep engaging with your network as you go along. So the first part to this, and really, I'm sure that this has been talked a lot, is about fine tuning or really making your CV talk for you. That's the first point of contact probably for any recruiter. And in the same breath, your CV as well as your LinkedIn, they really act as your social profile. They really help you to get introduced in the market. So there are many aspects to treating your CV as I said, your a document which speaks for you. But the top 2 3 elements which we see is that if there's a requirement for a particular skill set, you have that. Don't let it get diluted, but bring it upfront. Customize a CV as per the job requirement, and don't oversell it, don't overkill it. That'll simply dilute your profile, because then the roles and responsibilities actually get diluted amid the noise. So make sure that you highlight your experience for which you're applying for the job upfront. The second key aspect to this is that I might be a good recruiter, but what are those key metrics, or what are those key numbers which justify that I'm a good recruiter? How many placements did I do? What are the kind of clients I've brought on board? So really quantifying my achievements is something which add a lot of color to the resume. The third is that recruiters do like to assess you on your behavioral aspects as well. Yes, you might, as a technical guy, you might have those technical skill sets, but how much collaborative you are, how much of people leader you are, how much you can drive things, you can strategize. So make sure that those action phrases are there, which really describes that that's the way you've been doing things, that's the way you've been progressing, that's how you see and get things done. And amid all of this, as I said, don't oversell, be honest. So there's a thin line between being articulative and misrepresenting. So we need to be articulative. We need to make sure that your CV is pretty honest to what you have been doing. But in the same breath, we don't want a situation wherein I'm the do it all guy, but when it really comes to a focused hiring, the recruiter just loses the essence of what this individual has been doing. So bring that up front. And lastly, it's always good to have those fresh pair of eyes looking at your CV. So make sure that you get that proofread. Let's not over scrutinize or overkill it, but at the same time, we have to ensure that there's a certain format to it. There's a certain messaging which is going out of your resume. And last but not the least, it truly represents who you are, both in terms of your technical skill set as well as the behavioral skill set which you get or bring onto the table.
Thanks, Harry. Maybe to add a couple of points to stress, and looking at this, there's a couple. There's sort of a couple perspectives here. One are the ongoing things you want in your resume, which is the quantifying achievements, using action phrases. You can actually Google resume action words, and you'll see like 200, like an action word for every situation. If you need a thesaurus to try to diversify that. And honesty, as Harry mentioned, is essential. The tailoring piece, part of that is if you are applying for a job posting, it's understanding what's happening behind that. So if any job posting, there is work that goes into that by the hiring manager and team. So the HR person, perhaps the hiring manager, to really carefully write that job posting. And they are on purpose, therefore, there are keywords that are going into that posting that are important to them and ideas. And so when you're reviewing a posting, as Harry mentioned, it might be that you see things there in the posting going, oh, I've done that. Hey, that's me. That word, I've done that. But then you look at your resume, and because you don't throw the whole kitchen sink in your resume, right? You may not have highlighted that in your resume or even put it in your resume, right? So the idea is, in that case, you want to make sure that point that's in the job posting, and if you're looking usually at a bullet points of qualifications, and it's in many cases the top qualifications are near the top, right? And it sort of goes down into from must-have to nice to have to, well, if you have them, that's great, right? Type bullets. But you want to make sure that if you've got something that they've said here, that it's clearly reflected in your resume. Like you almost take word for word, like maybe again, use a thesaurus to pick a different word, but use keywords even they're using and embed them in your resume if you've done it. And the other point to that is depending on the company, the person that's reviewing your resume may not actually be the hiring manager, right? It might be actually a recruiter. It might be a very inexperienced recruiter or an HR coordinator that is reviewing resumes very quickly, and they're looking for keywords. So they know what the posting is. They know what they're looking for. They're going to look at your resume and go, can I quickly tell that they've got some experience? If we've got 100 applicants, right? Does it jump out to them? And it might be, in some cases, if it's a large application like that, they might just have seconds, like a minute, where they're looking at your resume. So you do want to take time to do that. We didn't talk about cover letters here. I mean, this is getting into the minutiae a little bit. I mean, I wouldn't spend a lot of time personally on cover letters. Like if you're doing it, it's like a paragraph describing why you're applying and you're excited. But I don't, they're not things that are, unless they're really asked for, that I find it's a brief, paragraph. I'm excited to apply your organization, couple sentences highlighting your core experience for the role and why you're interested. And that's it, right? And then LinkedIn, right? So right next to your resume, and LinkedIn really is the modern resume today. See this, most job seekers find their roles through personal connections and direct networking, and LinkedIn can help in that way, right? So you've got your resume together. You should treat your LinkedIn as well if you're searching as a resume. And that means if there's particular types of roles that you're interested in and you're applying for, you want to make sure on LinkedIn, not only do you have maybe your career history, but you also have bullet points like you have in your resume that describe what you've done, keywords that would be related to the types of roles that you're looking for. And that's so both, I guess, within your network, but also recruiters look on LinkedIn all the time. Like we're on LinkedIn. My desktop now would have LinkedIn on it, right? So, and when they have searches and roles come up, they are doing keyword searches, they're doing title searches, and a whole host of other things. So make sure that your LinkedIn profile is up to date and activate your network, right? So a big thing, right? Earlier in my career, you work with somebody and then great relationship, and then you both move companies or what have you, and very easy to lose touch. The great thing about LinkedIn is either whether it's with neighbors, friends, just people you've met, right, in your everyday life, or coworkers, it's a very easy way to keep connected with people, right? And to learn where people are. And that in a job search, we'll talk about that. Activating your network, letting them know is very important. It can also be helpful in expanding your network, right? If you see people that you would like to connect with at companies that you're interested in, or in roles that people that may be managing roles that you're interested in, it's a way to do that, right? In terms of connecting with people and adding to your network there. You can also, LinkedIn now is really the main job posting site, one of the main job posting sites. There are LinkedIn alerts, so you can get alerted, right, on a regular basis on jobs as they're posted. Search jobs, of course. It also helps you if you are doing research and wondering, who people may be within a particular organization that you're interested in. It helps you identify those people, perhaps connect with the right people and decision makers, such as the HR team, talent acquisition people, things like that. So it is both in terms of your profile, it's helpful to look at. It's also, you may want to take a look at all the different LinkedIn settings to see if they can help in any way. We talked about job alerts, things like that. There are other features to LinkedIn that you may or may not need, right? The free features from LinkedIn typically are enough, right? When you are on LinkedIn, though, you have other capabilities. If you've got a nice network developed, you can, follow people, thought leaders or people in your area. You can post ideas or related content, which will show up, right, in your network stream, right, which keeps you top of mind. So if that's something you're interested in, I would say, again, you want to keep those postings professional. There has been a lot of talk recently that LinkedIn's turning a little bit like Facebook, right? And I think some personal is okay, and if it's really well thought out, but it is more professional, right? Posting, even if it's just you're reposting articles you see on LinkedIn with a couple comments or even no comments. It's just you start showing up then within your network feed. And again, ex-colleagues, people you've worked with in the past, great way to connect. If you feel comfortable, it's important to let them know, hey, great to catch up with you. I'm also looking for my next opportunity, et cetera, et cetera. It's very important to let people in your network know that you are looking, right? People that you trust. And they sort of look out for you, right? And we all the time we get as recruiters, we get people saying, oh, I know so-and-so, they're looking, right? Let me forward their email. So, and there are premium LinkedIn features that expand access and insight, and also free trials, right? At the right point, you could do that. Resume templates, they're also online to can help with guidance, I suppose, on LinkedIn. I believe it might still be the case in here. You might know you can actually, I think, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile today, I think you can actually use your resume as the foundation of LinkedIn. Like, I'll let you do that, which quickly populates it. But and as Larry said to your resume, you want LinkedIn to be accurate, right? The last thing you want is to have the wrong dates, perhaps, or to say you're working for a period of time in a company you weren't, which I know none of you would do that, but I've seen people I've worked with where I looked at a LinkedIn profile and go, wow, that's not entirely accurate, right? And it's not something you want to, not a path you want to go down, right? And we've talked about messages. Here are some samples, and I think this will be shared with you that you can keep. But types of messages you can send. There's an in-mail and messaging button on LinkedIn. You can message people you network with all the time, and you may, if you get additional features, be able to in-mail somebody. But you can see how you might reach out to somebody to expand your professional network, or we have a shared connection, because you will see shared connections, or people that you've known or have got a referral to. So there are ways to do that as well. And again, you want to make sure you keep things professional, and realize that people do get a lot of messages too. So certainly don't take it personally if somebody doesn't respond to your note in real time or get back to you. People monitor the LinkedIn networks to different degrees, right? Maybe great to pause there. I'm not sure if there's any questions at this point. Happy to take any questions that you might have.
Yeah, so there's actually one that just came through when we were speaking about LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Considering it's advised to tailor the resume to a specific job posting, how can I tailor my LinkedIn? Love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so I would have you'd have a generic resume, and I would also have a generic LinkedIn posting that, based on your experience and the types of roles you're interested in, would cover, you could say, as much as would cover as much as possible, right? Like if you're, so the tailoring for a posting is a little bit different in that it might only require you to add a new sentence or two, or make sure you stress a keyword, or, oh, I didn't put this particular experience in, but I have it. Let me just really put it there. So I think you'd use your generic, like what LinkedIn profile best describes the roles you've had, right? What were your responsibilities, right? And we'll walk through this in the resume. So what were your core responsibilities? What were select achievements? What was your role, right? What did you do, right? In really good terms. And maybe it's like 3 to 4 bullet points, spending more time in your most recent roles. So I would have a generic one that you feel comfortable with, and thinking when you look at it, and maybe you're somebody you trust, look at it, go, does this describe me in terms of what I've done, what I've achieved, my background? Then I think you're good. And then as there are job postings, and if there's keywords that are associated with your types of roles you have, you make sure those are included so they show up in LinkedIn, but have that generic model. And then as there are particular postings, maybe asking for some things or stressing some things, then you can tailor your resume. But I wouldn't, as long as, you want to revisit your LinkedIn profile from time to time, going, is this best reflect me? As long as you think it does, then I would just have that generic profile there.
That is all the questions so far. So I think, she said it's been helpful. Thank you, Ian.
Great, you're welcome.
Yeah. So if there's any other questions, I think we can address them at the next one.
And we've talked about engaging your network, right? And it is important. And there's a couple of legs to your job search. And these are things we've talked about, the foundation, like your self-thought, like what am I looking for? What have I done? What am I good at? What do I like? And therefore, what's the range of hopefully really exciting types of positions I can apply for or look for? So you've got that figured out, and you've got some direction there. Now you've got some of the things that you're looking to put together on an ongoing basis. Your resume, you've got that set. You've got your LinkedIn set, so that's all good, right? LinkedIn's doing some work for you, actually, maybe while you're sleeping, just people looking at your profile. And now you also want to make sure your network knows, right? It's kind of one of the third legs to this. And a lot of people, I think we have the stat there, 80% of people get their roles through networks. So it is a case of, and it's even if you've been looking for a period of time, thinking, are there people I know that maybe I can let know that I'm working, I'm looking for my new role, and so it's both. For sure, it's reconnecting with your current network and your recent network, people you've worked with, talking to people, letting them know that you're looking, right? But it's also, are there people that you would like to add to your network that are related, have similar roles, or in similar roles or organizations that you're interested in, or that might manage, right, types of roles that you're interested in? If you're a sales and account manager, there's a particular company that you're interested in, or an industry, maybe it makes sense to connect with a number of sales managers, right, that lead the types of roles you'd be interested in. So you want to look to that in terms of engaging your network, LinkedIn network, former coworkers, family, right? And also recruiting agencies, which I should think of right off the top as well. Recruiting agencies, if there's areas, depending on the roles that you're interested in, inevitably there are agencies, either if it's temp agencies or other types of agencies that do work and do recruiting in the space that you're in, very likely. So it's also taking time to identify some of those agencies and reaching out to them, getting into their stream, so that as opportunities come up, that you may be on their radar and they'll reach out. And you might ask, well, how do I do that? And part of it can be Googling, part of it can be talking to people, like, hey, have you talked to any recruiters or agencies in your area, people that you work with or that you know? Part of it might be too looking at job postings, because agencies will post job postings. And if you're seeing job postings come up from a particular agency that or roles that are in your area, then you might realize, hey, at the time that maybe I should reach out to somebody there and figure out who that is. Maybe it's connecting again on LinkedIn with somebody at that agency, right? And adding them to your network and then messaging them and reaching out and getting on their radar. So important things to do on an ongoing basis.
I think, Ian, to that point, what really helps is that companies like Randstad, Adecco, or Aramark, they have certain targets, they have certain roles to fill in a stipulated amount of time. What you can also do is you can go on their contact on LinkedIn and try to see if they have mentioned their email, their either professional or personal email ID. And you can also send out your CV or just a hi and connecting email to these, because many of the times they're overwhelmed on LinkedIn, but an email always helps. And especially for recruiters, they do like to mention their emails so that they have maximum coverage of the market, and they get the CVs as in when it's required for a role. And if there is a match, there's a perfect match to any of the roles they are looking for, and your skill set is in sync with that, they'll just get in touch with you at the drop of a hat. So it has happened many times to us as well, Ian. We've closed on a lot of financial searches like this, that some candidate sitting in the US, they reached out to us and we are looking for it and they are willing to relocate. So it's as simple as that. So make sure that do reach out to these recruiting agencies. They are really very helpful.
Yeah, it's a good point here. And here he mentioned a few of the larger organizations that work across a wide range of roles and industries, like Adecco, Randstad, companies like that. I'm sure you've all heard of others. And again, it's a way to have, again, another part of your network that, these are organizations, when you're on their radar, they'll be reaching out to you, right? Or they'll be keeping your profile in mind as opportunities come up. So it's part of that job search process, right? And if you do the groundwork up front, it sort of continues on, and it's a helpful part of that. And doing your own research. So we've talked about, you get your resume ready, your LinkedIn profile ready, which again is you're being proactive, and it allows people to kind of find you as well. You've got your network, which is helpful. People maybe in your network then are thinking, hey, if I hear of anything, I'll reach out to you, or keeping you in mind. So that's kind of happening right in the background. You've also then talked to some agencies, and so they're also in the background. Another piece, people that might be looking for opportunities for you. But they also, you can say the fourth leg is doing your own research. It's the proactive piece. And job postings are great. We've talked about some strategies around job postings, but what's even better is actually getting into a company before they posted the job, and there aren't like 350 applicants, or encountering what would be the hidden job market. And there are lots of jobs that aren't posted. And part of that is, again, doing your own research. And it can, when I think about it, and it might differ a little bit to you, but it is what types of, when you think about the roles you're looking at, what types of industries and organizations does my role exist in? Are there industries, organizations I'm interested in particular that I feel a real affinity for, that I would like? In the past, that might also be, you might look at that geographically, who's near me, but we can talk about that as well, how that's changed. So you're researching organizations, identifying the ones of interest, looking who are the relevant people I could reach out to there. And usually it's the HR person or a recruitment person or team, or it would be the hiring manager of a particular role. Again, if you're in sales or if you're customer service or what have you, then it would be the person that manages that team. Or you're in finance, it's a person that manages the finance team. Good to reach out. Hey, very following your company, really interested in what you've been doing. I'm just making up a message here that probably isn't very good, and connect with them and reach out. Love to learn about opportunities that come up in your group as they come up, right? Things like that, right? And it's great. It happened to me early in my career where I did that type of outreach, and I happened to send in this type of note and resume right at the time when somebody was looking to actually hire somebody, and it's nice to get in at that point. And it also helps you, as I mentioned, address the hidden job market, right? And the hidden job market is, again, jobs that aren't posted or advertised, and there are lots of them, right? It might be companies don't want to spend the money or figure, hey, we'll use my own network. Maybe they don't have sophisticated HR recruitment organizations, or they do leverage those instead of the job postings. And so that is how you tap into that, is doing, again, your own research. Networking is helpful, proactive research. Recruitment agencies help, right? There's lots of jobs they have that aren't posted. We'll go to an agency, we won't post it. But it also, if the jobs do become advertised, it can also help you get maybe in front of the jobs before they're actually online and posted. And in the past, we talked about looking at companies, a lot of people too, it's good to even rethink, right, depending on the role you're looking for and the nature of the role, the perspective, right? With COVID, the significant change, right, is that everybody's working from home. Or so the last year, a lot of people have, and we are seeing companies, frankly, many companies are not going back to full-time in office. There'll be some sort of hybrid situation where you have some employees in the office and others won't. And it's created significant change to the job market, and that it will have expanded depending on what your role is, right? If some roles you have to be in person, they're in-person roles, and there's no question. But there are a lot of roles that now, maybe the company that you wouldn't have considered before, an hour away from you, now that role is remote, or can be remote, like 4 days of the week, right? So it also gives, I think it's a good time to reflect and think, how has my role changed? Will my role change? Has that expanded things for me? If I want to work remote, or if that's an option for me, how that will have expanded the number of companies and organizations you can look at, like, for sure, right? And depending on your role too, there are now also U.S. companies and other companies outside of the region that are coming in and going, we've got an office in Chicago as an example, but we can have this person based in Toronto. Like, why not, right? And there are some roles, whether if you're in finance, some technology roles, a customer service, of course, where that, for sure, you can be located almost anywhere. So I think something to keep that in mind.
There's one that just came through that's really good. Talking more about LinkedIn again, is what advice would you give a job seeker who's changing careers and has a network on LinkedIn that's mostly in a different industry?
Yeah, so it would be, that's a good question. I think I'm curious, like what industry, I'm just if it's helpful, what industry are you shifting from and to?
Real estate to education.
Education, okay. So that would be there. I would take a guess that it would be looking through, you can search your contacts, right, on LinkedIn and your network. I would start searching through your existing network. Don't assume, and maybe type in some, again, for the education sector, some keywords there, right? And if you're in real estate, depending on commercial or residential real estate, there's a fair chance there are some people in your network that may have connections into that space. So that may well work. But also, if you're making such a well-defined career move, then it also helps set the framework about who do I want to become my new connections. So both my existing connections who may have be able to help me there and actually have connections in education I had no idea about because I knew them from a real estate point of view. So looking at that, and you can search through your network on LinkedIn. There's a feature to do that. Keywords, and other types of searches you can do to figure that out. But also it does frankly help to then define who else do I want to know on LinkedIn that's in the space, right? And start to reach out to those people. So you never know in your existing network. I'm guessing there probably would be a few people, but also then it is helpful because you're making a defined change. Okay, who should I be linking with on LinkedIn, and where organizations, people, who should I be following on LinkedIn, kinds of people I should be linking up with, right? That is helpful. But yeah, it's helpful because you've got to define, okay, I now want to build my network here, and how can I do that? And before it was, let's do some conferences, now it's webinars, things like that, but you can start to build that out piece by piece. It takes time, right?
I think, Ian, just want to add one point to that. I've shifted from tech to business consulting to now HR recruiting. So that's kind of been my journey. And every time I'm absolutely at the same crossroad where to start from now. And one piece which has helped me a lot is that try to use your experience as your strength. Like when I make a case for myself, I always tell this that bringing a tech background backed by a strong consulting experience helped me to understand this space to an extent that I have a now knack of identifying people who could do the job. So try and keep your messaging on LinkedIn, or probably even your profile on LinkedIn, in a way that your transition is your strength to start with. And once you're making those connections, try telling them that why this is something which adds or brings on great value to the people, and how probably this switch or this transition at this point in time is most relevant for you. So that's kind of the trick that helped me to amalgamate my tech business consulting experience to tell people that I have an understanding, a ground zero understanding of stuff, and now I can go for and look for people who can do the job for us.
That's a good point, Harry. Like you want to, if you're connecting with new people on LinkedIn in your new desired industry, you want to have that in your LinkedIn profile. Why, right? So they understand, why is this person connecting with me? Oh, this is why, because they're making a shift. They've communicated it here, right? And it's in their profile and that, right? So
there's a couple other questions. So when we were talking about how potentially jobs that might be outside of your city are now remote, what's the best way to apply to those positions?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'll maybe, Harry, I'll answer and you can chime in as well. Part of it is depending on how far out of your city, right? If it's if they're coming from way out of the city, like I'm talking like in the US, they're in the US, then very likely they're letting it be known that they're hiring in the area, in our Toronto area. So you probably see a posting, or you have people reach out to you proactively if you're in a particular area. Otherwise, it's being proactive. It's realizing that in the past, you might have seen a role it's posted in Waterloo and thought, hey, why am I looking at a role in Waterloo or a job posting in Waterloo? But today, I like that role, and it might say in the posting, or you might just, hey, maybe you could almost assume that there's an opportunity for it to be remote, or they might mention that it's remote, right? So it's probably more from your side. So it's expanding that. Sometimes it might be explicit where you see it and it says remote and the posting, but other times it can be just more both, maybe applying to postings or doing a deeper dive in a posting to see if it's if it is a remote option, or also looking at organizations. There are a lot of organizations now. You'll see they're Googling them. I think Sun Life just came out. Of course, Shopify is the big one early on. They have already declared that they're going to a remote workforce. And so you can also do your background research and realize, well, as an example, economical insurance is in Kitchener. And, in the past, I never would have thought of applying there. But now I just saw they're going remote, and any job there, yes, I'll apply for and learn if it's remote and there's a hybrid scenario, right? So I think it's just doing research in a couple ends, and they could also be explicit in the posting as well.
Yeah, and just to that point, Ian, what we can also think of is that again, I circle back to the messaging piece that once you're reaching out to these recruiters, you can always tell them that now that we are all working remote, I feel that I'm more of I can be more of a contributor for this role. Whereas and would be happy to work in the same time zone. If it's not the same time zone, probably an hour here or there, but happy to work in the same time zone and use my skill set to the best of my ability. And then you can obviously highlight your accomplishments as well, which you have done, because at the end of the day, all what someone needs is to get the job done. And if you're able to do that, then I think you have a strong case for applying for these jobs. And it's harmless to just drop a line. You never know or what people are looking for, and you may land up in an interview.
Yeah, and it's still early days, right? Companies are still figuring it out even themselves, right?
Okay, great. So talking a little bit more about LinkedIn, there's just three more questions. So for the LinkedIn profile, especially the About Me section, what do recruiters or managers look for when they're trying to find a candidate for their organization? And should they be highlighting soft skills or hard skills?
About Me, so and here you can add your piece here. It can be like a career objective, like a summary of your background. And if it's so it's a sort of a high level summary of your background about you, what you're interested in, like kind of career objective would be my estimate of what you'd want to put there, right? So who you are career wise, your career objective, maybe a few, like it's not very long, but it's sort of that, so it's sort of summary, a few sentences about your career history and your objectives, right?
Yeah, and be a bit more specific, because again, you don't want to lose on to your key self by writing a very long about me or summary section.
Yeah, you can look to differentiate. Yeah, you can choose something. You don't just want to fill it with buzzwords. I see. You want it to be authentic, right?
And Ian, to that point, I think day before yesterday we were on a call. If you remember, one of our candidates got rejected because he expressed certain I would say political view just in his about me section, and it was just like it didn't come across very pleasant to the one who was hiring. So have it neutral, non-marketing language, and just talking about yourself. It should appear authentic and concise. So
yeah,
that's what I would do.
And the great thing about LinkedIn, and both for your resume and your profiles, you can look at what other people with your role have done and how they've communicated and what resonates to you. And I'm not saying you're not copying it, but it gives you ideas, right? Oh, okay, I kind of like how they frame this and this, and that can give you a great starting point.
Talking about the resume and LinkedIn profile piece, there's a question that I heard that short and concise resumes are a trend on LinkedIn, but I'm worried I'm not going to be able to include enough keywords for the ATS system. Do you have any suggestions or opinions about this?
I'm trying to think of how long, I think 2 pages, right? It's a standard resume that we would get. And I think that probably can translate. In LinkedIn, it's different. It's like you want to put your more recent roles, you want to have more information on that. And so you'd have more keywords. And again, you can look to even good examples on LinkedIn for this. Like I want to say you've got on LinkedIn, maybe at max, you've got 5 or 6 bullets around your most recent role. Like you don't want it to be massive, and as long as you feel comfortable that you've got like the keywords most relevant you see coming up, whether it's in postings or that are relevant to the role or idea, like you describe the responsibilities, have you that have fallen to your roles, right? There'll be keywords there that pop up, and you have to kind of, I guess it's like a self-audit, right? Am I like would somebody who doesn't know what I've done, could they look at my LinkedIn profile and figure it out, right? Pretty quick, because it's self-evident, right? And would people, especially who've been doing what I've been doing or my industry or hiring for me, would they understand what I've done, right? We do, I think in the appendix here, we include like a sample kind of resume. We walk through and we highlight that, and it is a combination of responsibilities so people can understand what you've done, right? Great thing about LinkedIn too, a resume, you may also want to include what is a company if it's not apparent, right? If you're working for a smaller company or what have you, you may want to put a description of the company, but then it's like, what was your role? What have you done? Scan of responsibilities. I was leading these groups or managing this organization or what have you. The list of responsibilities, achievements, right? Is sort of what should cover it and should cover the keywords like that you'd see, right?
Okay. And then what if you had a lot of diverse experience? How would you kind of organize the LinkedIn or the resume for that?
I would always do it chronologically is my preference. I see some resumes and I think that's the wide preference so people can understand your career. Sometimes it does make sense to put, if you've made a move to a role, like even a line why, or if you've left a role, like left the organization when it whatever, was sold to XYZ company, or, made a career decision. I don't mind that at all, right? Like, I think especially on LinkedIn, very applicable to LinkedIn, like made a career decision to shift it over here and describe it that way. So I don't think there's anything, or if there's big gaps. My wife was off with children for a few years, and we had some things to manage with one of our children, and she put that out, right? Put in her profile that, whatever, just professionally, but why the gap was there, right? So I think, but especially LinkedIn is very applicable, and in the resume as well. And maybe have a line explaining why, right? You made the move, right?
Okay.
And also, if there's commonalities to them and commonalities to those different roles to a role you're applying for, you want to like explicitly put that there and hammer it out, right? So they understand, because they may not be familiar with your prior role, and like, what is that? I'm not familiar with that. And you explain it why that's relevant. Oh, I get it. Okay, I can see why that's relevant.
And then kind of going still on the resume train, there is a client who has a tech sales background and looking to move more into a non-sales role, more operations. They're having a hard time finding jobs and how to structure their resume for this new role. So do you have any advice that you can offer them?
Yeah, so it would be, so they've already done the first step beautifully, which is understanding themselves and where they want to move. It would be, so part of it is looking at their prior sales roles, and have they done, I'll say, operations related activities, like maybe budgeting, for example, or have they worked with sales? Some companies have sales operations, worked with sales operations. So however, I guess operations is defined in their industry. Have they worked with the operations team in their sales capacity, like collaborated with them on particular projects? So they want to look to the background for any experience there. And then it is, they've got a defined place they're going. They want to be able to articulate, looking to make the leap from sales to, is it sales operations or what have you? Easier within the industry they've been working in to make that leap, because they know the industry. They've probably been working with operations people in their sales capacity in those industries. So making the inside industry leap to an operations role is the easier way to go. I hope that answers your question. So I'd focus on the same industry. So it'd be technology, want to move from sales to operations. Why? What prior experiences do you have? Why do you want to make the move? What do you think you could bring right to that role? And then you're reaching out to those operations people. It might be, there are sales operations roles in technology companies. And that is, we see salespeople move from sales to sales operations and back. So maybe it's, okay, how can I get that experience? Maybe it's a half step into sales operations, or into a role that involves in the sales force that involves more operations, right? I guess sales operations would be it. Sales enablement, right? So looking in those types of roles as well, that might also be an entry point there, depending on, I'm not sure how they would define operations in their industry, but maybe those are some tactics they could look at.
Yeah, and Ian, just a quick point there. So it's critical to identify the transferable skills which you can take from one role to the other. So in this quest of making this transition, probably what would help is that you can use XYZ skill set which you have earned in a sales role, and also working collaboratively with the operations, the sales operations, and across the spectrum of sales has helped you to acquire those skills and make you feel adept to the next step towards this particular job you are targeting.
I have two more questions. Kind of moving to I just lost it. 1 second. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. Okay, so moving over to the hidden job market. What are some highly effective ways to tap into this market, considering there are so many jobs in this market?
Yeah, so it's probably back to it's back to the strategy and the things you want to have going on an ongoing basis. And part of it is, having your network going on it. So you've let your network know, maybe they know. So that sort of happened right in the background, and your network, they know that you're looking, they're out there. If they hear about things, hopefully they'll reach out and let you know or pass your name along. So that's one piece. It's recruitment agencies. It's making sure you've got introductions, you're front and center with them. Those introductions are done. Great. You can touch base with them, like from point to point, maybe from month to month. But that's sort of happening in the background. So they're going to be getting opportunities on a daily basis. Hopefully, as there was ones that would fit you come on their horizon, they reach out to you. So you're hearing about those passive opportunities from agencies, from your network, right? Your friends and family and what have you, former coworkers. So it also LinkedIn, right? So getting your profile, how you like it and feel comfortable with on LinkedIn, thinking, hey, that really explains me. somebody in my industry or in the industry I want to be in who's looking to hire somebody, might a recruiter would see my profile and think, hey, that is somebody maybe I want to reach out to proactively. So it's also that. So those are sort of things that are happening in the background that you get set up and you get sort of established and they're running and going and you're maybe maintaining them right during it, but it's sort of the front end work is done on those. And then it's also your own research, right? Like reaching out to companies. If you're making a leap to educate, an industry leap or a role leap, then you are being proactive. Like who are the people that I should be introducing myself to? What kind of companies or organizations are going to be hiring this type of person or hire these type of people? And how can I link up and introduce myself to them and get on their radar? So then that's the piece that is sort of the daily or weekly work on your side to do that piece, right? To get in front of that.
Yeah, and just probably a quick tip here. You can always select open to opportunities so that when someone who has a recruiter license of LinkedIn, when she or he looks at your profile, they can easily see that you can start like right away. And if there's a critical role, then probably it's the other way around that they'll reach out to you to get that role filled in. And I think second point, and this has helped me a lot, that it's always good to be network with the networked. So, for instance, if there's someone who's highly connected in the market, is open for a conversation, do have him or her on your radar, so that every time or probably once a month, if you touch base with them, they have a clear visibility of what's there in the market, and they can make that kind of an introduction to the hidden market. At times, Ian, many times we've had this situation that there is some role in the head of a client, and they are not even prepared with a job description or anything for that matter. But something strikes that we know this person who's on the market, and we just make that connection. It's as simple as that. So make sure that you get connected with the right people, so that once they get to know about a job opportunity, they can quickly think of you and make that connect.
Okay, so we have a couple minutes. So I have one last question that I think will resonate with a lot of people. There's been a lot of talk around it, but do you have any suggestions for older women of color who are looking for work? I feel occasionally there are barriers being an older worker. I never felt racism when I was younger, but now that I'm older, I see so many roles I'm interested in as a digital writer, but I see the company makeup and the lack of diversity is astonishing. Do you think things will change when it comes to diversity and inclusion hiring practices?
So yes, like things are changing across every industry and company and organization. And I think the difference now, right, is that it's not just idle talk. It's actual real, we are seeing real movement, organizations, or companies and organizations being pushed on it and being measured on it. And I'll just say, I mean, it's not, just from our own personal perspective, working with clients, it's on their, like, it's not just on their radar. It's like, it's a priority for them, right? From we've done board hiring where it's a priority all the way through all the roles that we recruit for. It's a priority. So that is it. So that's one thing. So yes, I think, and I think it is a lasting change now, and it's going to continue to get, I would assume and hope, much better. Not that there aren't organizations out there where you see and go, wow, like how do you end up with, a whole bunch of white guys across that organization? And there's obviously something with their practices, but people are changing. There's a variety of technologies and even processes companies are putting in, even technology where you send in a resume and it just basically takes out personal information from a profile, right? That larger companies are doing to make sure that it's an equal and fair hiring process, right? And there aren't hidden biases that are coming to the forefront, right? So yes, I think that slowly is changing, and I think will continue to change. The the ageism thing is like an interesting thing because it is also hidden, right? And people do have biases there that can come up depending. I mean, I don't mind sharing. Like even my wife was just looking for, she's got a new role, but she was looking and and she's in HR. Okay. So, and she took out the first few roles. Like she audited her resume and said, first of all, you don't need to put any dates on schooling in your resume. Like, I don't see any reason to do that. You don't need to put a photo, and you shouldn't. I don't think you should put a photo. You don't need to put a photo on your resume. And I'll be candid, my wife took out the first few roles of her career because she's moved on far enough, right? We've been out 20 plus years in the job market. So she took off the first two roles in her career to kind of shorten that up. And you should do that in some respects because you don't need to have a long resume. And it's a good excuse maybe to audit that a little bit. And if somebody is hell bent on that and saying, oh, I want this and that, it's hard. I don't know how to counter that. I'll say our clients, and we work with people, we aren't screening for that, like at all, of course. And the clients we work with don't at all. Their own concern is if somebody's maybe toward the end of their careers, understanding their career trajectory, how long, what is their plan? What are they looking for in their career development, right? It's not thinking like that at all. But practically, I think there are some things you can use for your resume, maybe cutting some of the dates out, removing some of your early career that sort of sanitize that a little bit. Like I'm going to put in that right. That's how I think about my profile too, right? So I hope that's helpful.
And then I know we're a little bit over time, but I do want to ask one last question because I feel like this doesn't get talked about. But we have a client who has gaps in their resume, being a mom and having worked overseas, finding it really hard to land a job in the project management field, and that they get ghosted by recruiters once the career gap comes up. So what advice can you offer?
It's terrible getting ghosted by recruiters, first of all. And we've all been there, and they shouldn't do that. And that's maybe a good sign not to reach back out to them. So I would, and again, I shared my wife had a 5-year gap, right? Where she took off with our children and some other health situation with our child. So she put that in there, right? Like just 5-year gap, stay at home. When she came back from that, like it was hard to find a role, and it was, I'll be honest, it was shocking to her. She had, before that, had been an HR consultant, like with large banks. Before that, very stable tenures at all of her roles. And that's the challenge of dealing with recruiters or people that don't know you, right? Is they're checking a box and they see that there's other applicants, and it can be an issue, right? So I would explain that there. Sorry, I've got my son just hopped in here. Joys are working from home. So I'd explain that. You also want to leverage your network because people do know you and have worked with you. So you want to re-engage that. And I think explain it in there, right? So you want to make sure it describes it, you describe it in your resume. You can't prevent a recruiter from ghosting you, right? And you can't prevent somebody from having a bias, but you can explain it. And I think inevitably it will work out. It'll be frustrating. I know for my wife's situation, it was frustrating, but it worked out. You got in through a friend of a friend and a network. And then once you get back in, you're in, right? And it's not an issue anymore. It's making that leap back in, right? It can be challenging.
And probably in to that point, we can also project this gap in a way that during this time, I had a time to reflect on my career and decide what's best, and acquired certain skills, and it's now I'm more prepared or mature to take care of things. So and that comes probably once you're having a face-to-face conversation. But again, it all boils down to, like, I remember, someone talking about that 2 lawyers were fighting a case, and one of them said that, how did you manage to win? He said, just because the judge liked my story. So it's at the end of the day, it's about the story which we tell, the way we present ourselves, and always do remember that you just have one person to take care of, or the career to take care of, and that's yours. So take charge of it on that front, and think that if I am a recruiter and I'm encountered with this profile, what are the obvious questions which will come up, be it be related to gap, be it be related to career choices, or be it be even as simple as related to, as you talked about, certain ethnicity or your diverse background.
Yeah. You just don't want to have gaps, not like you want to explain why they're there, right? And that's the big thing. A lot of people just don't do that, and you don't know why. And so that's remove the mystery, right? And Harry's point, usually it's a positive. Hey, most people would view those things, international travel, with your children, as being positives, right? The right organizations, it's not an issue, right? No, Harry, I know we've got a time thing here. Harry, did you want to walk through? This is a snapshot. We won't do I guess this is self-reflection, right? I don't think we were going to do a poll, but I think just time-wise, likely not not the best. Maybe here just talk a little bit about staying engaged, because we've talked, and no doubt it's a frustrating process, but how to, some ideas from our perspective, how to do that.
Thanks, Ian. And I think we've already covered a large part of this in the presentation, so I'll not repeat what we have said. But at the end of the day, it's about only you who can help you, and for that matter, it's very important to be motivated, and this has helped me in a big way, that stop thinking that I'm the only one who's encountering this, or I'm the only one who's having certain bottlenecks, but try to see it as a situation wherein anyone or everyone in my shoes would have done the same bit. So to start with, certainly having a strong mindset and developing those methods and mechanisms which really help you in two ways: one, in finding a job, and second, in staying motivated during this process. And once you have those conversations, you start developing a mindset wherein you know that what's working for you, and it then becomes a part of your routine and a continuous learning process. So in this section, we would love to focus on staying engaged, developing the mindset and the method, what it takes to have that motivation and spirit high in this process of landing to your job. I won't say dream job, because there is no such thing as dream job. But in that job. So and it's really everything what we've discussed and what you already know. Just a bit more reflection on that. So the person on the other side of the screen, she or he is also a human being. So they understand your challenges. They understand the fact what you might be thinking in this evolving scenario with all the COVID and other bits going on. So it's important that you don't go too harsh on yourself. You try to think about your situation like anyone else's. We all have certain challenges in this new setup. We all have like Ian's son just walked by, kids at home, pets, the Wi-Fi signals just getting snapped. So it's okay. Don't panic. Don't think that that's kind of any hindrance in your quest to find a job for yourself. So these are small things. These are little I would say hacks which really help you to be motivated and be engaged, and not getting distracted from your goal of finding a job. So as I said, that it's about keeping it very simple. It's not adding any layers of complexity to what you've already been doing. And second is, and Ian will cover this more in terms of having that routine and still feeling of having that feeling of being into a certain setup from 9 to 5, rather than just letting go of the control of things from side. And some days are better than the other. So there might be 2 interviews lined up in a day. There might be nothing lined up for the next 2 weeks. But we have to make sure that whatever conversation we have, however we take day by day at its merit, we need to make sure that we stay motivated and we present our best self in front of the recruiters, or for that matter, our network as well. And this will help when we keep those checks and balances on us, and make sure that we don't let things go haywire. And your network, the people you rely on, be it be family, friends, and subordinates, they can really help you to get over this and keep you in the right sanity and the right frame of mind.
Great. So, and part of this, as Harry talked about, I mean, certainly, as you get things and your search is ramped up, you've got your resume, your LinkedIn profile, you've done the upfront networking connection, some of the upfront, outreach to some of the agencies, you've got those things already going, like you've done them, and you can kind of set them aside and you're maintaining them a little bit. But it does still help the benefit of a daily schedule, even like literally, even if it's 45 minutes to an hour where you're, whether you're looking at job postings, perhaps, are there, looking through your network, there's industries you're looking at, interested in, you're maybe doing research, what's happening, or what's happening in that industry, what are companies particularly doing. So it helps to kind of maintain, some of the activities of your job search, right? And to keep you engaged with that, but not to overwhelm, right, as well your day. So it's just a consistent piece of that. And ideally, you've got everything set up so there's also things going on even while you're not, tending to it. Reviewing postings, researching your roles, companies, reaching out to your network again, re-engaging. We are coming back, hopefully, to having coffee in person and all of that. So that another great opportunity to re-engage after the COVID year we've had, and certainly looking again. There are some sectors, looking at bright spots. Like things are changing. Your whole sectors of the economy now, depending on what you're interested in, are coming back online, right? And you've seen, no doubt, right? They're looking for people, right? So, and so there's that piece, right? The whole parts of the economy coming online. You look at hospitality, like in a big way, right? That over the next through the fall, hopefully, and the next year will be coming online, looking for people, begging for people, really. But there's also areas that some of the economy has changed, and there are businesses that are growing, healthcare, software, of course, technology, and we've talked about the COVID working remote. That where everybody, well, if you're open to that, will open up more opportunities now and in the future. E-commerce businesses, food delivery, like home delivery, food delivery services, have really. So there are sectors also keep in touch to keep abreast of and go, hey, these are newer sectors. Like some of them almost overnight, right, have really expanded in the past year. LinkedIn publishes this. You can keep track of this. In my world, it's like where companies get funding and they're expanding and growing and hiring hundreds of people. And some functions too will be more in demand if you're thinking a career shift or where you're at, or you've got skills that are applicable, that certainly, supply chain, logistics, businesses and the whole industry, expanding the whole healthcare, supply chain industry expanding, data analytics, technology, of course. So there are also something to always keep in mind, like, how would my skill set, experience, interests fit into these maybe newer roles, right? And so you can, again, fishing where the fish are. It's something to keep in mind of. And that's sort of part of maybe the daily thing you're doing is keeping a weekly thing, keeping in mind of that. Harry, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about this. And we've talked, I think, we've already actually sort of talked about this. Industries that are of interest, maybe hobbies. Are there skills you can add, learnings you can do, seminars you can take? If you're moving into industries, we're not doing meetings right now, but there's lots of webinars, Zoom webinars, industries that are free to sign up and learn. And it's additive to that. You see speakers, you learn more about the industry as well. So staying connected to where you want to go, learning something new, right? LinkedIn Learning also has that as well. If you want to talk about this a little bit, Harry?
Yeah. So really, what Ian covered, and this is just binding onto what he said, that it's important to have self-reflection. And I'm always an advocate of the fact that it's good to quantify whatever we do. It's good to see a pattern of things. It is good to observe key themes. So if in this process of meeting recruiters or networking, you see a pattern, observe that, because that kind of lays the foundation for the conversation you are going to have with yourself as to, hey, what am I missing here, or what's not working for me, or what's working perfectly for me. What we tend to do is we kind of tend to think a lot about our weaknesses, and what it does is that it questions on our strengths as well. So not always that, whatever we are doing is not in sync with what's needed, but it's also the case that we might not be building too much on our strengths as well. So identify those, and that comes with identifying the themes. What works probably best in such kind of scenario is that you need to understand the audience in this entire process and curate yourself in accordance. Because what mostly does is, and that's part of the self-reflection when I did for myself, that I wasn't reading too much about the interviewer. I wasn't reading too much about the organization. I was just blindly applying for jobs. So what it did was that whenever someone sat with me for a serious conversation, I was lacking facts. I was not sure as to how my skill set is a perfect match for the job, which just because of the title, that doesn't mean that job is there for me. So those themes come out of reflection, and it's important for us to identify those. It may be as simple as a body language. It may be as simple as using a lot of fillers. I was corrected. I always used to say, So when one sentence I used to say 5 times, So I was corrected on that. So it may be as simple as that, and it may be as complicated. Maybe something to do with your past, something to do with the experiences which you have, and the ghosts of the past are not allowing you to be yourself and presenting your case in an honest and mature way. So that comes when you have that experience and you identify those themes and start working towards it. Then you are really prepared because you know yourself. So it's easier for you to brand it that way and market yourself in that fashion.
Yeah. And just a couple of points, and we could spend a whole other hour talking about interviews, but I mean, it goes without saying, like, yeah, when you're meeting with a company, you do want to do your research, and it's amazing. It doesn't happen that often, but it is amazing. Even some of the most senior people we present to a client goes in, and it doesn't happen very often because people usually level can understand that, and they're taking care of their career. But it's amazing still how often somebody, they didn't really know anything about the business or company. So you do, that's a good point Harry had. Like, we're not going to get into interviews, but you want to do your research before an interview in the company. You want to be able to go in and go, like, why, if they ask me, why are we sitting together? Why are we talking? Why are you interested? You want to know why, right? And you want to understand some things about the business and why you're interested and have that. And
so Ian, just to that point, Boyden did ask me that, if you're so happy with your current job, then why are you looking out? So
yeah. They want to know motivation, right? So, agreed. And it shows interest, and hey, you're on top of it. So, and the self-reflection and I guess self-care. I mean, from my perspective as well, your schedule also does get your scheduling and other things, of course, exercise and things like that, because it's you need it.
Yeah, and just to that point, it's about one step at a time. We need to understand that we can't boil the entire ocean at one go. So it's important that we don't get over selective or choosy about what we are looking for, but at the same time, we just don't want to go haywire. So it's a part of being engaged is a part of being regular, and when we say being regular, it's not always applying for jobs. It might be about networking. It might be about building your own industry knowledge and sharing it with the larger group, because that reflects that you do think about topics. You make yourself open to read about stuff, to read about your industry, and then share it with the larger audience. And in this time, when there are no interviews lined up, but you want to be connected or engaged, simple things like identifying which companies you want to target in the order of priority A, B, C. Start looking to build your network there. Do that outreach for those companies. Maybe a priority B company is looking for a skill set which is a complete match to what you can bring onto the table. Make sure you have that on your radar. If you start feeling anxious about your prospects, still you need to take the steps to give you that confidence. It's just like preparing for an exam that you don't want to leave it all towards the end, but making those small reading something every day or making those small steps so that once you reach on that date, you are well prepared for it, and there are less surprises, and you feel more aligned to what you need to do once you go into that interview. So those small steps every day really helps or lays the foundation for you to actually do well on that day.
Yeah, in summary, I think we've summarized this already, but it's yes, I think the summary I would have really is making sure you've got the foundational things in place that we've talked about, right? The resume, you're super happy with it. Your LinkedIn profile, you're super happy with it. You feel like you're comfortable, you've engaged your network and are maybe looking for ways to do that. Maybe it's now meeting up with coffees and things, but people that should know you're looking. And you're also being proactive in talking to people in the industry and who are involved with the roles that you're interested in, right? So it is companies, recruitment agencies. And that's the piece that sort of is an ongoing basis, companies and postings and agencies, and being proactive, like the things you do maybe on a daily to every other day basis, depending on what your schedule is like. So it's doing all of those, having those things happening in the background, and then on a daily basis, being a little proactive, refreshing your network, reviewing new postings, right, is certainly what we'd recommend. And it unfortunately can take time, right? And especially the way the last year plus has been. The good news is, and we get asked all the time, how are we seeing the market? I mean, we are seeing a very healthy market. There are some sectors that have been extremely healthy the last year, healthcare and e-commerce, and some others, logistics. But we see all of them coming back on really in a big way. So I think my sense is across every sector, and education through to hospitality, et cetera, you're going to see really an uptick in opportunities as we get further into the fall. And that's, I mean, certainly happy to answer any questions, follow-up questions to all of this. We did include in an appendix sort of resume best practices, like how we do an order. I think that probably this will be shared with you, right? So you can have this. And we've talked a lot about it, and some resume tips as well, which I think we've talked pretty much about all of these here. Well, part two, certainly the interview is interesting, and you guys might ever, I'm sure you talk about that, but we're happy. Another point, that's a helpful thing to do. And the good thing about it, the only positive about a job search that keeps taking periods of time, and where you've got more and more interviews, as you get better at it. And if you can self-assess that, again, we've all been through that. And sometimes it is a case on that front where just the fit isn't there, and you've dodged a bullet, and there's a reason why it didn't work out. In other cases, it's like, maybe I can tighten up a little bit how I communicate things, right? So happy to do that at another time.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Harry and Ian, for this workshop. Super helpful tips, a lot of things that I'm sure our clients can take away and start implementing now. So thank you so much. And I did see a couple of questions talking about the copy of the presentation and the recording. So I will be sending that out right after this. So don't worry if you missed a single thing. You'll be able to watch it. I
did see a question there on sample resumes. So we don't share just because of we don't share sample resumes because of just personal stuff. I mean, I guess we could redact them, et cetera. But two things. One, in the appendix, we've kind of structured that like how we'd see a resume, right? Career objective, personal information like name, like phone number, email, career objective, and then chronological history. And we walk through that there. So it's almost like a template. But I'll just say too, a great thing about LinkedIn, you'll see people on LinkedIn that have virtually their resume like on there, right? So you can look how they describe it. They're in similar roles to you. How do they describe it? How do they organize it? But you want to have it chronological, with dates and so people can quickly figure out on a quick look, like what your career has been and what you've done, where you've worked, responsibilities, roles, right? So LinkedIn's also a good resource. It's like a repository of thousands of resumes almost you can look at. Not everybody puts all of it in there, but you'll see enough of them to figure it out, right?
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ian and Harry. And also thank you to everyone that joined us today.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.